More and more people in South Africa are considering solar energy to minimize the effects of the power blackouts, but it is affordable. And what should consumers bear in mind when looking at going completely solar? Well, let's bring in energy experts, solar energy experts, Vito Schnabel joining us once again on the show. Vito, good to have you back on eNCA. Is it affordable, though? I get the sense that it's getting more and more expensive because, as we all know, how supply and demand works, the more supply and more demand, the higher the prices go, of course.
Good morning, Gareth, and to the viewers. Yeah, that's the perception that things get more expensive, but the opposite is actually true. If you look at prices, let's go to 2008, 2009, when I had my first solar system, we count the solar panel prices in per watt, and we paid back then something between $7 to $6.50. $7 to $6.50 per watt. Now we're selling at the region of 30 cents. So it has definitely become much, much, much cheaper and affordable. And I can encourage everybody to do it because it saves you every day the sun shines, cents and rands every day.
Just help us understand, for an average size house, you're saying it makes rands and cents. Let's just talk about that quickly. For an average size house, let's say 2 or 3 bedrooms, maybe 2 bathrooms, or what size power supply would I be looking at for that? Because if you call up a company, they'll obviously try and sell you more than you need. What would you actually need for an average size house with an average size family?
Okay, first of all, solar systems are modular. We work with modules, and that's what my encouraging to everybody is start small, start and learn with what you've got. So you can spend something like 50, 60,000 Rand on a small house like you just now described, but it will not take you off the grid, and you shouldn't go off the grid because with the grid we can share resources, and that's what it's all about. We just need to complement our energy usage by the sun during the day, and then have the grid as a shared resource where we use the power then during the night. Going off grid for a small house like that, of course, you're going to pay 180,000 Rand, but that is not what I encourage. Stay on the grid and use it in small pieces as you can afford it. And the thing is, people buy cars that from the day they buy them, they lose the value, they lose money, they cost you money in petrol and services, everything. A solar system, from the day that you install it, earns you money. That's what I really encourage everybody to think about.
Well, I was going to ask you next, because it is quite difficult to follow at times. I can understand why people get confused. This talk of selling your surplus power back onto the grid, is that for regular, everyday consumers in a household, or is it only for big business? And the other issue, Vito, which I'm sure you'll know about, is there was this concern that Eskom was going to penalize you if you did have a solar system. There's all these theories running around. What is the thinking on that?
So it's for everybody to share the excess or put the excess energy back into the grid. Remember, we have got a huge power crisis, so we need every electron onto the grid. So everybody should push back solar energy into the grid, every excess that they've got. Now, the concern that everybody's got that you get penalized is not true, because at the moment you get basically a fee as a consumer, which is a energy-only fee. So it's all included, the infrastructure, the connection costs, the lines, the overhead lines, the transmission, everything is in your kilowatt-hour price included. Now, what Eskom is doing is they're separating that out. So they're saying the energy, so the kilowatt-hour is going to cost X, and the infrastructure cost is going to cost Y. And then basically you have to pay a fixed fee, monthly fee on the infrastructure costs. And then basically you get a cheaper rate for the energy if you buy from Eskom or a municipality. Now that is basically what's happening here. It's just a fair splitting of costs between energy and infrastructure costs. And it makes sense for everybody to push back electricity into the grid. Now, people say, well, you only get, 1 Rand 10, I think, now per kilowatt hour back. That's, I think, for Cape Town. And if I buy electricity as a prepaid meter, I pay 2 Rand 40 or 2 Rand 60. That's unfair. No, in the 2 Rand 60 is all the other costs included, subsidies, by the way, as well. And in the energy cost that you put back is just the electrons that you put back. That's the energy cost.
It comes down to being able to put back into the grid. We all share the power that all of us are getting from solar and putting it back in as well. It sounds like that's the way to go as well. I think there was some confusion about Eskom penalizing you if you weren't entirely on their grid. Vito, it's good to have you with us. I'm sure we'll talk again in the near future. Really appreciate it. So solar's still the way to go, even though we don't have blackouts at the moment. But of course, they're not going anywhere. I'm sure they will be back sooner rather than later. Solar energy expert Vida Schnabel joining us here on eNCA. We're back.